Hello, you guys. How are you? Am I even here? I've got to get my cubes even. Keeps me in balance. Oh, does it? I think they're semi-even. Hey. Happy sunny July to all of you.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. Mason really likes the live. Thank you. Just like on with your bad stuff. What's this live about? Making you smarter, Danny. Making you smarter in special education. Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen?
That and a new lipstick color. What's the color today? We know everybody's going to want to know.
It's the same lipstick. It's Snob by MAC. Although I'm not a snob. I am bougie, though. And Sour Sugar. So it's, because you need to see the combo. I don't use a lip pencil. I'm sure that when I'm famous, I will. So this is Snob, and this is Folklore. Can you guys see that? It's the best. It's just 1980 meets 2024. Not that I ever left 1980. So there's Shannon and Mark.
Hello.
All right, ready, kids.
All right. Ready
Oh, hold on. Let me turn you up. You're so soft-spoken. Now,
Are we rock, paper, and scissoring, Christina?
I have never been accused of being soft-spoken.
well, I'm sure you got all your spokens out today, didn't you?
A comes before C, Christina. That's all I'm saying.
She is right.
That's true.
ACD.
Yeah,
ACD. We're like almost a band tonight.
that's true.
Yeah.
We need another C.
All right. So our first question of the night: how much are your advocacy services in California?
They're the same. They are free with purchase in California. So it depends on which, if you want my services or if you want one of our team members. Our prices are based on experience and expertise. So there's a range, but if you're looking for representation, you would just send us an email to advocate@specialeducationacademy.com, and we'll get you matched with somebody that meets your needs.
Does it look bad if I do not give consent for a home assessment for my kindergarten?
I don't know if it looks bad, but I guess I would say, why aren't you giving consent? The intention of any related service, in-home training or in-home parent training, is to provide services to the child with a disability, but ultimately, it's your right to give consent and it's your right to not give consent.
Okay, this person would like to know what your first name is.
My first name is Karen. My God-given middle name was Marie. When I was growing up, I was an Earls, so we were the Earls girls. My first husband was a Mayer. He's gone now. He's still living, but he's gone now. And my current favorite husband is a Cunningham. So, I like a big name.
All right. Well, that was all the questions we have for tonight.
Okay.
See y'all next time, folks.
Yes, thanks for coming back.
Right, exactly. All right.
Do you want to take over, Christina?
Sure.
All right.
Would a lack of Arabic translator impact the nonverbal scores for a teen?
I'm going to assume that a teen is Arabic. So nonverbal is based upon gestures, right? It's based upon body language and pointing, which is pretty universal. So I wouldn't think so. But certainly if you have a child that is an English language learner, you would want the diagnostician to have some, information in that area.
All right, perfect. Then what exactly are the responsibilities of a case manager?
Is that a trick question?
It is.
It's to leave you in the waiting room going, I don't know where your advocate is. Oh, look, she logged on. There's Danette. Yeah, so the case manager is the one that oversees that the IEP is delivered in the conformity that we signed off on it. So making sure that all persons that need to see the IEP are dispensed that the related service providers, the special educators, the general educators are providing her information for present levels, or him information for present levels, IEP goals, IEP progress reports, and that it's working out the way we intended it, and it's making expected gains. That was a doorbell.
What do I do if a service provider has missed over 80% of my child's time during the academic school year?
So if the special education and related services have not been delivered, your child's been denied a free appropriate public education, and your child's been harmed, and I would reach out to the campus and ask what sort of compensatory package were they prepared to offer us.
All right, and then do you have any tips for a new special education coordinator?
Oh, eat your Wheaties. No, I mean, thank goodness for special education coordinators. Listen to the people that have concerns, whether it's an advocate or a parent, whether or not it's your concern or your what you know about. As long as we let everybody that are IEP team members have equal buy-in and participation in the IEP process, you're going to do well. Staff your rooms. Not staffing your rooms is against the law. It's been against the law since December 2nd, 1978, so it's not going to change. And so special ed is a requirement. There are no exceptions or exemptions for special educators in the United States of America. You can look at an OSEP letter, October 4th, 2022, about special education teachers must be in rooms delivering special education. But thank you for loving kiddos, and we hope you make it to state this year.
All right. Were you ever a SPED teacher?
I was never a teacher. I've never, ever have I been an educator.
Right. I'm trying to get a one-to-one for my son, but the school insists that a one-to-one is the most restrictive environment. Is that true?
I mean, a one-to-one is one of the most restrictive settings. There are a few times that I will ask for a one-on-one in certain instances for a child. Certainly want to deliver that special education through the one-on-one and then fade that support. The good news about a one-on-one is they can fully support your child. The bad news is it's hard to measure the data, right? Because does it turn into learned dependency? Those students often get very attached to this person. That person has the right to go to the dentist or have a day off, or when you move campuses, it's going to be somebody different. So very rare that a child needs a one-on-one from every minute of the instructional day. But certainly we want to look at the least restrictive environment and then look at those schedule of services minutes and see, does he need a one-on-one during science? There's probably some areas during the day that he really enjoys, that he does not need somebody attached to his hip. And then what is the purpose of the one-on-one? Is the purpose of the one-on-one solely for safety and redirection? Or do you think it's for instruction? So it's very important for parents to tease that out, because usually a one-on-one is not necessarily for instruction.
Perfect. What happens if a SPED teacher misses a child's minutes due to attending to another child's crisis?
Well, I mean, I think if it's a crisis, I mean, that's not something that we're up in arms at, my partners or myself. But if you just didn't give your child the minutes because you didn't staff the room, that's different.
Okay, to teach, do I need to change certificates from SPED from Arizona to Texas if I'm graduating from college in December? Yes.
So, what? Tell me the question again.
Yeah, so basically what she's saying is that she's going to graduate in December. She's in Arizona. She's certified in Arizona, but she's moving to Texas. So you'd have to take the Texas state license.
Yeah, Texas doesn't have reciprocity with other states. We're not like that around here. We want you to take our own test. It's got cows on it and footballs.
Yeah. I've been asking the program director at my son's school to have my son evaluated for an AAC device since February. I'm assuming it hasn't happened yet. Any advice?
Yeah, so I wouldn't ask. Everything that we do is legal. And so the only thing that's legal is what's in writing. The only really thing that's legal is what happens in an IEP meeting. So training that I do all the time, if it didn't happen in writing, i.e. you can't make it an exhibit, it's going to be hearsay. So when I make a request, I send it in writing. This is my formal request for Billy Smith to have a voice output communication evaluation, an AAC. We look forward to coming in and signing notice and consent in the next 15 days. So once you give them written notice of a request for testing, they have 15 days to respond. And so what happens is, Danette talks to Susie at the pickup line. Danette's husband talks to the basketball coach, and they just keep mentioning it. But you need to legally ask for things in writing or ask for things in a convened IEP meeting, and make sure that you can record in those states that you are allowed to. And make sure that it's documented. Whatever we're going to do, not going to do, sort of going to do, sideways do, document it in a prior written notice.
This is from Texas, obviously. The student's parents refuse the STAR test. Are they still required to do the House Bill 4545 remediation?
So the House Bill 4545 is not remediation. House Bill 4545 was if the student didn't pass the state assessments, we were to offer them grade level tutoring. So that's not really applicable for the kids we serve because our kids usually aren't at grade level. I didn't find that it was an amazing product. I think we kind of got it through. State testing is really done by campuses. There is a video of Mike Morath, the executive director of the Texas Education Agency, saying it's always the parent's decision, but it's really going to be the principal's decision. And so if the principal says, hey, Nicholas doesn't have to take that test, they don't have to take the test. So a lot of things that I argue about and advocate for, but state testing is not part of special education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. So it's what we do in states. We test and test and test and test and test.
How can a nonverbal autistic child qualify for a one-on-one support in school?
There's an educational need. And the educational need has to be quantifiable. Like, we've done all that we can, and his level of need requires a one-on-one.
Okay. My son sent a request letter for an IEP team for tutoring for 7th grade team. Suggested a para all day.
They want a para for tutoring? I'm not really sure what that means.
Yeah, maybe can you send a follow-up and kind of fill us in on that one a little bit? When I asked, when should I ask for compensatory services? Meaning, I know people get sick, things come up, etc., but when do you really need compensatory time?
When they've been denied services. I mean, certainly if Alicia has a procedure and she's out for 3 days in a row, I'm not going to ask for compensatory time. Life happens, right? But when I find out that what you listed on the schedule of services was in-class support, that's the special education page. Those are special education services. And when you look at me in the face and tell me that a para rises to the level by themselves as a special educator, that's offensive. You received federal funds for this child, and you received state funds, special ed funds. And often we see that there's never a special educator. So those are the things that we ask for compensatory time on, when there's a great amount of time and the school knows it, and there's no communication from the school to the parent on acknowledging it or certainly not even rectifying it.
So this is a follow-up to the AAC question, but I think it's a good one for a lot of people. What do you do when you haven't heard back from your initial request? What else can you do? I feel like the school is wasting time.
Yeah, so this is my second request following my email April 3rd, and I just do it every day. I do it every day for a couple days, and then we do it on the hour. And then I would just call the superintendent and say, it looks like you're struggling with outbound emails at the elementary school, but these are legal federal timelines, so they're not responding is a terrible response.
Our counties use LRE in order to gen ed all of our kids.
Well, then it wouldn't be LRE, would it? Because LRE doesn't even mention gen ed. So we have a requirement to look at the student's unique circumstances and determine where is the best place to implement their IEP. It's not a one and done. 10 years ago, I couldn't get a child included in general ed. Now, since we've come out of COVID, I can't get a child resource or targeted intervention they need. So we just stick by the data. What does the data say? Can he be successful in general ed? Can he be successful in general ed with a para to help with accommodations? Can he be successful in general ed with a special educator to help with IEP goals? With a co-teacher, does he need resource? We look at each content area and the needs of the child in those content areas.
What should a teacher do when you are asked to complete service minutes that you just can't meet?
What should the teacher do? They should go to their leader. The person that's in charge at every campus is the principal. They are in charge of making sure that all the education is implemented with fidelity for every student.
What if my child isn't getting their special education minutes due to staffing?
Okay. Then I would go to the campus and I would say, please let me know how you're going to provide us a compensatory package, because there was no special educator for Billy in biology this year. And then based on their answer, I pivot. So their answer should be, yes, Karen, let me get to work on putting together a package for you. Tough luck, we had staffing issues. Then I'm going to take that email right on up to a state complaint.
All right. Do students, teachers in a special education room count towards covering service minutes?
Tell me that again.
Do student teachers?
So we have lots of names for lots of people. Like I heard somebody say, I don't know, 50 times this year that these are special education paras. You're either a certified teacher, you're a certified special educator, you're a certified related instructional and provider, you're a certified instructional provider. So if you are one of those persons and you are part of implementing the IEP with fidelity during that content area, then that works.
All right. Can they force my son to be in the special ed classes even though he doesn't want to? He's autistic.
So we educate students based on their needs, not what a child wants, and certainly not what a child that's disabled wants. I mean, if I ask any child if they wanted special help or to need extra help, they would probably all say no. But we have to get children ready for post-secondary success, gainful employment, independent living, and further education. And sometimes in certain content areas, they need special education.
Okay, can a 504 plan be in place for bad attendance at school while still having an IEP?
I don't know what a 504 plan would have to do with bad attendance, but certainly if you're not attending school, it affects the ability to implement the 504 plan or an individualized education program.
A special education teacher was reported by another staff for yelling at my autistic child. What can I do?
So, those are administrative issues. Behavior of the staff are administrative issues. Certainly we don't want anybody to yell at anybody. I've yelled at my children. I'm sure teachers at moments have yelled at their classes. I have yelled at the band bus when I was a chaperone. Don't tell anybody. So I don't know what the yelling was. I don't know if it was... it could be a number of things. I don't know if it was for his safety, it was to correct him. I don't know. But again, that's a staffing issue, so I would reach out to the principal and say, can you give me some clarity on what happened, and can we make sure that it doesn't happen again?
And I think we had this question in a bunch of different ways, but we'll go ahead and read it again. What if my child isn't getting the special ed minutes due to the school staffing issues?
If your child is not receiving their special education in the conformity that we agreed upon it, right? So we made Billy's IEP, we signed off on it February 10th, 2024, and the special education minutes weren't delivered for any reason at all, then you are owed those minutes. You're owed compensatory time. What is compensatory time? Compensatory time is indicated in case law as relief to the student to return them back to where they would have been had the IDEA violation not occurred. When you don't deliver the minutes for whatever reason, it's an IDEA violation. I live in Houston, and we had a little rainstorm in 2017 called Harvey, where the schools were closed for 24 days. They weren't open during the school year, and we didn't get a pass from our state. Those were all IDEA violations. So it is all going to be contingent on whether or not you're willing to write a pristine state complaint and request those minutes back. If you don't request the minutes back, you're probably not going to get them, right? That's not my experience or our partner's experience. But it's your right. You only have rights under IDEA when you exercise them. I heard somebody say, I need to figure out who said this, but that IDEA is the only federal entity in federal law that is enforced by parents. So you got to get out there and enforce it.
Right. I'm a SPED elementary teacher, and my special education director has given me 23 MC kiddos and refuses another teacher. What can I do?
Well, I mean, that's not even realistic. So you've got to go to your principal. Your principal is in charge of all the goings on, as we would say in Texas, at their campus, period.
Perfect. What app, non-expensive, can a high school work on during the summer?
What app?
Yep.
I don't know what that means.
I guess like an app on their iPad that they can work on over the summer. That's not expensive.
I don't know. I know that when COVID happened, a lot of sites gave free access to students. I know there's edhelper.com. They have great worksheets. I'm not a fan of apps on a phone for humans, much less minors. So I would rather that student be working on something that they could print out or something like that. Usually, if you ask the school ahead of time, they'll give you some paperwork that you could do. And you might be able to find some of that information at the library.
All right. In an IEP, should I specify if the service will be pull out in a resource room?
So you would have to indicate the location of the special education. So you would say when it says the choices are usually general ed or special ed, right? So if we leave the general ed room, I'm going to say it's special ed. Is it in the dyslexia room? Is it in the Apple room? Is it the ASIP program? Is it adaptive behavior? Is it life skills? Is it the AA room? Is it resource? You want to indicate that there. So the paperwork should speak for itself without anybody having to explain it. Thanks, you guys, for the gifts.
Okay. Is it too late to ask for compensatory time for the upcoming school year?
Yeah, so you can ask in a state complaint up to 1 year back. So anything that happened from July 3rd, 2023 to now, anything that happened there, you could file in a state complaint for that. You could ask for something up to 2 years back in a due process hearing. You can kind of ask for anything in a mediation.
All right. Is it reasonable to ask to see the raw data on IEP goals and logs of service minutes?
So I'm not a big proponent of asking for logs for service minutes. They don't really show me anything. I did have one situation where they were very helpful when somebody had logged all of a student's speech minutes at a certain time of the week, but he always got in late on that day because he had therapy. But I do want to see the raw data collection sheets. What are raw data collection sheets? That is the piece of paper, the post-it note, the back of a cardboard box that you wrote on when you were working on the IEP goals during the week. The IEP progress report that you get is a software that somebody has loaded that up into, right? They've loaded their papers, all of their data into that. So I want to see all of their data before it gets into that software program.
All right. In general, how do you prove that there's not a special education certified teacher in the classroom if your kid is unable to report that to you?
So I would say, who is the second adult in the classroom? And they will tell me who that is. And I'll go, and I'll look it up. And I'll go, well, look at there. Bob is wonderful. Bob is not an educator in the state of Arkansas. So there's a problem.
Absolutely. Okay. Can a parent sign their child out of special education?
So it's not that you sign your child out of special education. You can revoke general education services, but then you revoke the whole thing. So, and then that opens them up to a sea of problems if they need the special education, and it opens up to all the requirements of the general ed student code of conduct as well. So I have had 2 parents in 28 years revoke consent, and I was devastated. But it's not my child, it's somebody else's child.
Can a reading specialist serve an IEP if the parent requests instead of the special education teacher?
If the reading specialist is a special education teacher, I think we need to really watch these words. I'm a advocate specialist, but I'm not You're either licensed special educator. We have all of these fancy names in schools, right? You're the sheriff, you're the coordinator, you're the defensive lineman. I mean, we just have all of these fancy names. And the truth is, I can take any name in an IEP meeting except for mine, and I can look it up in the state database, and I can tell if they're a principal, if they're a librarian, if they're a psychologist, if they're a coach, if they're ESL, if they're general ed, if they're special ed. And it will just, and so I ask that in the meeting. I'll be in the meeting and I'll say, hey, Danette, can you tell me the second adult? And I say that because I don't know if they're teachers. Can you tell me the second adult's name in the class? I was in an IEP meeting recently, and the adult in the class was a CPA. Super. Not a special ed science teacher and not a general ed science teacher. And the principal said, we should be happy to have her. I was like, are we teaching CPAing during osmosis? I don't know. I was like, I don't feel happy to have her because she doesn't know long division.
You can lie. All right. Children do participate in their IEPs starting at 16. What do you think about that?
Okay, well, that's not what the law says. So the law says that we are required to put in a transition plan for students with disabilities at the latest at the age of 16. Other states have increased that benefit and do it at 14. Florida does it at 12, so it starts at 11. So the school is required to notify the parents that they would like to invite the student to the meeting. While your student is a minor, it is always and solely the decision of the parent, whether you like it or don't like it. So it is the parent's decision whether or not their minor child attends the meeting.
What can I do when the behavior data is very anecdotal and that's all what the district has to provide?
So I would ask somebody that didn't take the data to tell me what the interpretation of it is. Often I'll get behavior data and I think somebody took it, but it's boom, 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 boom. And I want to say, if you weren't so busy writing down 500 little pen marks, maybe we could just be mitigating this behavior. So a lot of times I get data, there's no name on the sheet, there's no date, there's not even initials. It's just, oh, this is James's. And I'll say, how would you know that? Because that's where I pulled it up, but there's no name. So you have to think of your data, educators, that one day it might be in front of a hearing officer. One day it might be in front of a mediator. One day it might be in front of your superintendent. One day it might be in front of a state investigator. And does it cleanly show what you were doing when you were working with the student? So take the time to put the student's name on it and the date. And certainly if you're working on an IEP goal, what is the goal that you're working on? But 100 check marks mean nothing.
Is it possible for a child in ECSC to get an FBA and a BIP before going into kindergarten?
Sure. If you're 3 years old and you need a BIP, then we need to do an FBA. If you're 22 and you need an FBA and a BIP, we do that.
All right. And then I'm in San Diego. Oh, okay. Sorry, but okay. So they've asked this question a couple of times. What can an IEP do for you if you're in 7th grade with dyslexia?
So the IEP is an individualized education program based on the student's unique circumstances. So dyslexia is an eligibility, but you look at the total child, right? Their background knowledge, sociological, medical, physical, emotional, behavioral, language components, and you look at all of those, and you look at how their disability impacts them across settings, and then based upon that, the school would propose a program of general education and special education.
All right. So, what is IDEA?
The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which started in 1990. Initially, it was the Educating All Handicapped Children Act, December 5th, 1978.
What do you think the implications of Project 2025 wanting to get rid of the Department of Education?
Oh, we all want to, it's so funny. We all want to get rid of everything, but then we realize you got to have these things to implement something. We are the only place on the globe that has federally funded special education. Is it great? It can be. Is it awful? Sometimes. But if you go to England and you and your husband move there because you're in oil and gas, there's no special education federally funded. So while I wish that they had more requirements, I wish the federal government made the states follow federal law. They don't. I wish the states made the campuses follow their state law, but they don't. And so federal government lets states run themselves. States let campuses run themselves. I think as we work together and implement, I think there's a lot of good parts of the Department of Education. I would never want to get rid of it. I think I would be great up there, wouldn't I? We could have a press conference every day. We could have like a one of those lunch things where everybody walks out with their new blazer on. It'd be good times. You would never have to pay for jeans. You could wear jeans every day. In fact, jeans would be a requirement.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. So vote for me.
What trainings or professional developments do you recommend for special education teams in lower elementary school?
Yeah, so I mean, for professional development, I do a professional development for school districts and state agencies called Oh No, Karen is Coming. It's a fantastic training. In fact, I feel like that was a setup, Alicia, but I do love a good setup. So here is actually my training. I was just switching books. Oh No, Karen is Coming. That's me before my bangs grew out. And it really is about equipping school-based members to work collaboratively with parents, with advocates, with people that aren't employees. And really it's about that you're prepared for what I'm looking for as an advocate when I come to a meeting, which should already be there. We shouldn't be preparing really well when advocates come. We should have that same preparation for every student, whether their parents have representation or not. I think the next most important thing for staff members in any entity is to take, there's a great book called Emotional Intelligence, and working with other people that have different emotions than you. That's everybody. I think that we get to school and we have people that work in isolation and they really struggle to work in teams. And the intent of IDEA is that we're a multidisciplinary team working to provide a product for the student. Oh no, Karen's coming. It's not a joke, is it?
All right. What does your advocacy training offer that other advocacy trainings doesn't offer?
So we don't talk about just the law. Anybody can go and get the law book, right? Anybody can say, oh, here is 300.115, here's 300.324, here's 300.517. Thank you, Christina. That's my new favorite one. We talk about how you navigate and negotiate. I think a lot of people come in and go, well, 300.115 says resource and we're going to have it. If you don't understand how the entire document works together, how to prep a file, how to prepare your client, you're just going in there arguing with people in a place that you don't work. Our job as advocates is to work with people. My job is to take parent passion, educator wisdom, mix them all together in a language that we can agree upon, write up, and more importantly, implement. And so one of the things that I think that I do best is I teach my partners how to communicate effectively in a business model and not in an emotional model in IEP meetings. I feel like that's like I was like, Miss America, here's your question. Oh, look, I got a little thing. Thank you. Was that a good answer, Danette? Dr. Taylor, I need to know if that was a good answer.
She said yes.
Okay.
Okay. This one's 2 comments long, so just give me a minute.
Okay.
My toddler with mild autism, CARS 3360, was recommended for containment instead of an inclusion classroom. He has no behaviors and mild social physical delays. Is the containment recommendation appropriate?
So I hate the word containment. So 3, 4, and 5-year-old program of ECSE, they are self-contained classes. There's no requirement nationally for general education anywhere before kindergarten, right? So sometimes we have some general ed students that meet eligibility under different government requirements for pre-K. So those aren't children with identified disabilities, but they have other needs. They meet whatever the state standards are. But there's no requirement for, putting them together. If that's a benefit, we have the staff to do it, then do it. But I don't necessarily just need, Nate to go down to Miss Cindy's room for 20 minutes once a day. I need it to be meaningful. Those really great moments between 3 and 5, I want to get in all the education that I can get in. And almost always, I would say that's the ECSC teacher.
Okay, so I feel like this is a good question, but it's not finished, so maybe we can finish it.
Okay.
We have a parent that is refusing our offer of FAPE due to the LRE. So she filed the due process. Can you explain how this...
Yeah, so I mean, the parents have the right to not agree with you. Disagreeing with people is the human experience. I don't know if you know that. Did you know there's nobody in the world that you agree with? 100%. If you don't know that, just start your own TikTok channel, right? So we believe, I mean, I'm sure that you believe as a staff, for however you came to that conclusion, that that's the most appropriate offer of FAPE. She disagrees with it. So she has a right to exercise her procedural rights and safeguards, and one of those rights is to bring forth complaints in a due process hearing. One of the secondary rights is to have that heard before a hearing officer. So A, she has the right to bring forth the complaint, and then she has the right to present it at a hearing. Hopefully, all of you amazing people can get together in between before you go to hearing and say, let's work to resolve this and not go to hearing. But that's certainly her right.
All right, what can a teacher do when a parent refuses services but the student is nonverbal?
Again, that's the parent's right to not grant consent for initial provision of services. So that student is then going to fail classes. Because part of being in a class is you have to be able to, Miss Alicia ask you a question. One of the ways that she measures if you're learning is you respond. So there are a million different reasons why parents don't want special education. It could be cultural. It could be another person that they knew that was in special education. It can be a lot of things. But ultimately, it's not your child. It is their child.
All right. Do chronic absences or tardies count toward compensatory time?
No. And if you're going to be chronically absent and tardy, you really are recusing the school from having to implement the IEP with fidelity. The student has to be available for instruction.
When I asked for raw data documentation, I was told those were teachers' notes. Is that true?
The only teacher's notes that are teacher's notes are ones that they're passing to other teachers for their lunch order. All information about the student are the parents' educational records. So one of their procedural rights is they have the right to examine educational records. They also have the right to receive a copy of certain educational records. They're the child's records. So if you wrote a note and it has nothing to do with a child in school, those are your notes.
All right. Private nurse in ECSE classroom is paid not by the school. Can the teacher direct them?
No. And the nurse, so a nurse does not provide education. They are there solely for the literal well-being of the student with the disability, and they are solely there to provide the nursing schedule. A school district does have to offer a private nurse to the parent, but most parents that have a child with a nurse, they have their own home nurse, so they would just bring them if the district grants it.
If aides are not trained to work with children with autism and are making it unsafe, what can parents do?
Yeah, so I would say, my student is in this class and it's not a safe setting for him. We need to look at another setting, period. Whether it's the aides that are making it unsafe, the teachers that are making it unsafe, another child is making it unsafe. We're charged first with making sure that children are safe. There is no learning if safety is an issue.
All right, my progress reports show no percentages. Special education just changes goals. What should our progress reports have?
What's the word I'm looking for? Data. Yeah, I am stunned at how poorly IEP progress reports are filled out. Or, I do love a good cut and paste on a progress report. Like, he's literally doing the exact same thing in all 7 of his goals. It's fantastic. So, we really look at progress reports, right? The IEP progress report should be the beginning of every IEP meeting. At the beginning of the IEP meeting, you say, hey, Bob, can we hold on just a second? Before we jump into PLAF, present levels, can we look at his IEP progress reports from the last 36 instructional weeks and see how good he did? Bloop. And I think you'll be stunned to find out how many of the progress reports he didn't meet the goal, even though it was checked. So get out your magnifier and look over those progress reports.
How often should data be taken on an IEP goal?
At the least once a week. Alicia's a behavior teacher. She takes data all day long, all the time. But if you have an academic goal, certainly at least once a week. That way we can measure progress. Sometimes paperwork's written so bad it says once a year. So you need to make sure under the IEP goal it should say two things. One, who is the implementer, or whom's are the implementers right there. And then method of evaluation. And so I'm going to put 3 magic words: weekly data collection. Weekly data collection. So then that binds the school to collecting data weekly.
They provide transition programming in our district 3 months before graduation.
Well, don't overdo it. Wow, I think we've been getting kids ready for graduating since we gave birth. So what a terrible model. That's when you go down to the Dollar General, and this is a good time of the year, people, stock up on those pool noodles. Ba-bam! You know how many things you can do with a pool noodle? It is just, somebody showed on the TikTok the other day that they had a pool noodle and they put all their grocery bags for it and then slung it over their back. I'm like, I feel like that's dangerous. Like, what's that on your back, honey? It's a can of corn. I just, like, sir. Anyway, we don't recommend that y'all do that in Texas.
Yeah. All right. How do I find this magical teacher certification lookup?
Yeah, so when you go on the state's website, it will say teacher lookup. It's a legal requirement. I think, Danette, is it every state but New Jersey? In New Jersey, it's a secret. But it's on the state website. If you can't access it, then I would email, Christina in Wyoming and say, hey, is it true that Karen Cunningham is not an educator? And they would say, that's true. So the state has it. Obviously, those are requirements. I think one of the things you have to realize is that school districts hire people that aren't certified and tell them it's okay. And then when the rubber meets the road, they throw you under the bus.
Can a special education director from the county override a IEP committee decision?
Well, that certainly has been our experience, Christina, hasn't it? Or Alicia, that you have some bossy pants person in the room that's running the show that doesn't work with your kiddos. So we see that often. Unfortunately, we don't care for it at all. But we do see some bossy pants people show up.
We do, and they have name tags and the khakis to prove it.
Yes. And
I love when they show up.
Yes, and they tell us,
I'm like, let's go! Let's go!
we are not going to talk about anything under the law. Okay.
So we don't need to talk about that now. We don't?
Or ever. We don't need to talk about our failure to implement the IEP. That makes us uncomfortable.
Right.
Or, what are your parent concerns? But then as soon as you start talking, we're
Well,
not going to discuss that.
Yeah, don't, please hold your questions to the end. We're not going to talk during the talking. Okay. Okay. There'll be no talking during the talking.
Exactly. All right. Can you represent teachers and the school district as well as parents?
So probably 20% of my clients are school-based members that hire me to be their advocate because their school district is a banana head to them. And we have some, I've represented families as high as the assistant director. So I mean, goofiness is for everybody. There is no, it's no respecter of your, you would think if I work at a school, like this could be a benefit of working at the school that my IEP is going to be smooth. Say it with me. SAMOOTH. Smooth. It ain't. In fact, it's usually worse. It's my experience that they treat teachers, especially teachers that get an advocate, worse because they're like, I don't know why you had to call Karen. We're a team. The reason they called me is because they don't feel like you're a team, sweetie. Yeah.
Or they show up in your classroom after your meeting and say, really?
Really?
You couldn't wait a couple more weeks?
You couldn't wait 4 more months for her to just, ruin the rest of the year.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Had that experience today. All right. Do you have a recommendation for type of school that's best for a student on an IEP with autism? Public, charter, Montessori, etc.
Public. There's not ever going to be a better setting than public school for kids with disabilities when we get it right. The range of services and the amount of staff members that a public school draws will always be high. It just will always be higher. I think charter schools are lovely for kids that are really good at listening to instruction and getting to work. I don't know anything about Montessori schools other than for littles. I find that most humans need structure. And I find that most students with disability need really good structure. And so public school is not perfect, but it's the best model that I've seen for almost all kids with disabilities.
All right, I have a feeling I know what your answer is going to be on this one, but do you have any rules that are a must for a special education administrator?
Oh, it broke up. Do I have any
books that are, or manuals that are an absolute must for a special education?
Yeah, there's a book that's called Think About That. You Don't Look Good in Orange, and They Don't Serve Wine in Prison. No, I'm just kidding. You know, an administrator is a heavy lift. That means that you like working with all kinds of people, with all kinds of personalities, and all kinds of things. You know, what I would say to anybody working in education is remember to stay child focused. I would never say remember your why. The why is when we get paid twice a month, right? And that you love teaching. But stay focused on serving kids. And as long as that's happening, stay in the game.
My school wants to push into gen ed straight from self-contained. I don't think my child's ready. Can I request an alternative?
So he might be ready for some general ed, but having support when he goes in there. I wouldn't be a proponent of all self-contained to you're just swimming in the deep end of general ed and you have no support. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't really follow the continuum of services. So if they believe that he's ready for general ed, I would say, great, let's talk about the amount of support that he needs in each content area.
All right. And then if a child with an IEP is expelled, but there's no alternative school in the district, what's next?
Then you can't expel him. If you're going to expel him to an alternative school, then you have to have a placement that serves him and still delivers the IEP in conformity. So if you send him to DAP, District Alternative Education Program, he still has to be implemented his whole IEP. So we were training on this last night, and there are schools that I've said, you know, we've decided that Billy is going to go somewhere for 45 days due to a disciplinary action that was not a result of his disability. I said, I just want to make sure that you're able to implement the IEP there. Oh, we don't have that there. I said, then he can't go. Okay, we'll just take his in-school suspensions as time served. So if you're going to expel them, if you're going to, you know, send them to an alternative placement, you have to implement the IEP.
For sure. 100%. What is the longest period of time that you have experienced a student being in stay put?
Right now, 2 years. That's a good question. So what happened was, you want to know what happened? I'll tell you what happened. So we filed in August of 2022. It takes a very long time to get a hearing. We had a hearing. We crushed them. We came back, and the hearing officer's decision was partially for the petitioner's request, the parent, but the other part was not. So we appealed that with our attorney, and now it's going to a federal court, and so we still got the same stay put.
Interesting. Can a school use a VI provider who didn't qualify our son to provide services after we requested an IEE?
Yes. Yeah, that's the gig, right? So if you have an evaluation for OT and the school said he doesn't qualify, and then you get an outside evaluation, they said he qualifies. Okay, well that OT provider is gonna be providing it. And VI instructors are very few and far between. It's not like you have a lot of speech teachers, speech providers, or OT or something like that. Like, you're gonna get who you get. Ooh, somebody says they were in stay put for 5 years. That's a lot of stay putting.
Yeah, they stay put for a long time.
Stay right here till your father goes home.
That's sad. Father gets home 5 years later.
Yeah. You just slide them a bologna sandwich. That sounds good.
What
A
happens in 40 minutes?
I'm going to get a bologna sandwich between now and then. That sounds really good. We don't have any bologna, but so in 40 minutes we have the academy. You want you to join us on the academy. That's where all the big learning happens. That's where you get all of your questions answered. So we train on federal law. We are in series. Right now we're finishing up a series related to instructional services under IDEA. But you want to join the academy. That's where all the cool kids are and all the learning happens. You would go to Special Education Academy, go to training, fill out your information for payment. There'll be a little box that says, do you have a coupon code? And you would put in TikTok Live in all caps. And then you would come on down. You'd be with us for free for 15 days. If you decide to stay for more than 15 days, and you'll be charged $47 monthly. If not, it's okay. People make mistakes. But we'll miss you, and you can come back when you're ready.
Wow, that's how you feel?
That is how I feel. Thank you for typing it out.
I said, oh, look, we have emoji. Somebody listen.
Yes. I'm not smart enough to do the T is for Timothy, I is for experience.
But all caps. Make sure y'all type it in all caps or it won't work.
All caps.
Okay. How did you become an advocate as a current school psych? I'm interested in becoming one.
So it was baptism by fire. My son started special education in 1997. A few months into it, the school made a tragic error. And then they made that same error 5 months later, and I said, let's do this. And I became on a call list for TEA in the spring of 98 and started working with families that had new diagnoses. It's sort of parent to parent. And I just became obsessed with the code, the statute, the laws. I was like, this is such a good law. Let's just, what am I thinking of? Do it. And it was such a intense experience for me. And then I just started helping families and ta-da! That's how I started. So it's the most rewarding vocation. I can't think of anything better than to give families hope and give a child a future.
All right. Can a school still send a student to self-contained if every member but the parent agrees?
Right. So you have the right to disagree with a school twice. If you disagree with the LEA, the local education agency, twice, the state is going to defer to the recommendation from the school. But you can exercise your right within 5 business days to file a due process for stay put. Nicholas! Hey, buddy! Aw, he's so old now. How did they all get so old? Hi, sweet boy. Are you having a good summer? Yes. Are you having a lot of ice cream and swimming?
Favorite banana split? Yes. Yes.
Banana splits. You can't be mad about that.
Mm-mm.
All right. What are the options for kindergarten children who cannot learn at school due to trauma?
So, you would need more specifics around that. Cannot learn at school. If the school is not an adequate place to educate your child due to emotional or psychological or health needs, then you can look at out-of-district placement at the expense of the district. Those are obviously more restrictive. They're limited options, but the school they have what they can do. They can't do everything. It's not a hospital bay. They're not doctors. They can't change meds. They don't have trauma training to teach. So sometimes school is not an appropriate setting for them.
Does a resource certified SPED teacher need to be certified in the content area?
Nope. No, but it's kind of funny because we'll have kids in high school and the special ed teacher will go, I don't know anything about math. We're learning together. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
I had that happen with my child in 5th grade.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know anything about this.
You're the only 5th grade student I have. I've never taught it before.
Yeah. We'll learn together.
Yeah. It's always good. There's no preschool services available in my district for an autistic 3.5-year-old. We transport 40 minutes away.
Sometimes, depending on where you live, that does happen.
What steps can I take to obtain a refusal to act letter?
I don't know what a refusal to act letter is. Is it for your child? Is it for yourself? Is it for you to attend something? I'm not really sure what that means.
Okay, how does a parent hire you or someone on your team to become a parent advocate?
Yeah, just email us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com and we'll get you set up with somebody.
I'm gonna put it in the chat, but I can't type the .com, so I'm just gonna put it at the end, but y'all know the dot and comment, okay?
.com.
All right, can a student be prolonged lunch due to non-compliance?
Like as a punishment, or he just needs longer to eat because it's hard for him to eat? More lunch wouldn't be a punishment for me. I love a good lunch, but it's not a punishment. It's not a tool that we use to mitigate an action of a student.
That actually reminded me of another question we got the other day, which I thought was interesting. Okay, so just hang with me for this, okay? So they have a special education student in self-contained that the parents send food for every day, right? However, the food either needs to be cooked in the oven
No.
or the microwave.
No. Yeah, schools have no requirement. I had a client, I didn't keep her long, that would send like a medium rare steak in foil for like a 6-year-old because he likes that. We all like it. We would all like a medium rare prime rib with some Parmesan crusted asparagus. And I said to her, I said, let's try letting him eat, cafeteria food because that's more like your non-disabled peers. Oh, he won't do that. The first day he did it, he had pizza, nuggets. He was like, he's living his best life. Sometimes the barrier is the parent.
Yeah. All right. My son has severe uncontrolled asthma, and the school refuses to provide a one-to-one. What can I do?
Well, one-to-one wouldn't help with asthma. If your child needs full-time nursing to survive being in that setting, they probably need nursing all the time. But asthma is onset, and we have a medical protocol to respond to that. But a one-on-one wouldn't stop asthma.
My son is gifted and on a 504. He is being held back from gifted to finish his work. Is this okay?
Is it okay? If you got to finish your work, you got to finish your work. If he has extended time to finish his work, he has to do that. Here's the thing with gifted, and I know this is going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's very rare that kids are gifted in all content areas, and we have to really think about, is the gifted program right for him to make expected gains? Because sometimes kids have the aptitude, the IQ, but the pressure of being in those classes is a lot. So I would say that, when he's in general ed, having to stay to finish his work, that shows you the characteristics of his disability.
All right, this was a good one to end the night with. For an EBD student, adding gen ed time based on a level system, do you need an ARC for every addition of time, or can you just hold one meeting to review the level system?
So when you have a child that's on a system, we can certainly put in the document that we are amenable to you trialing time. But when we finally figured out we trialed some time in science and he's good, then we have to come back to the table and make that permanent change.
Perfect. All right, that's it for the night. Where we gotta go?
To make a bologna sandwich, but I don't have any bologna. But I do have some Spam. I had some Spam the other day with some fake cheese glommed over it. Oh, so good. So, now when they make Spam on TV and they cut it in cubes and add peas and white rice, I'm like, what are you doing? Why would you ruin compressed meat products with vegetables? Yes. So, all right, love you guys. If you need something, let us know. You guys have a happy July 4th, and we will see you next week.